welcome on in. Macroeconomics, how are we doing, people? We got some people kind of late to the party. We only got 14 people watching. What's going on? What's going on? Hey, people, if you do this, let me show you something real quick here. If you guys do, right, if you click this right here, right, make sure that hits live. Make sure it's like red. I realized it like last week. Because like sometimes it's like gray and like you're off like, you know, a few different seconds. Just a little FYI, just a little FYI, you know, in the morning here. But people, oh, it's right, yeah, we got the PSAT going on today. You guys are absolutely right. We got to keep it like somewhat chilled, and I forgot. We can't go too crazy. Yeah, we got some people taking the PSAT, all like 7, but yeah, that makes some sense. That makes some sense. Cool. Cool. Well, it's Thursday, people. We're almost done with the week, and we're almost, you know, done with the ADS model. Now, when I say that, right, that means like learning about new things in regards to the ADS model. But we're gonna forever be using this graph for the rest of the class. That's why it's so important that you guys are on your game. All right. So today, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a long-run aggregate supply. So we're gonna add our third curve to the ADS model. And we're going to complete problem set 3.4. Today is a very, very important day, although, you know, we do have a lot of people absent. We'll probably do tomorrow, we'll just revisit it again, because it won't hurt, right, because it's so important, you know, might as well just cover it again. But I'll do it a lot quicker tomorrow. And then tomorrow we're going to learn about economic growth. And then you guys will most likely work on ADAS model FRQs. So we'll keep it pretty light on a Friday. And also remember, tomorrow we got to go in the haunted house, right? So I'll take a little bit, right? Oh man, I can't believe it's almost Friday already. It's gonna be scary, alright? Well, we're going in there, people. We're going in. Oh, yeah. Alright, people. Your attendance in the chat is this right here. What is the scariest movie you've ever seen? Or show. It could be a show, too. Or, if you haven't seen a scary movie or a scary show in your entire life, what's the scariest, like, thing you've ever seen in your life? It's got to be something. In addition to that, people, I would like you to try to fill the survey in. It's one question. I want to see if I can do polls on here. I hope it's not blocked by the Chromebook. Alright, so get your attendance in the chat and then see if you can do my straw poll. Alright? Hopefully you guys can. Oh no, Sophie, you gotta fix your internet. Man, you guys have seen scary movies that like they sound scary and I've never seen it. It's blocked, really? Are you serious? Straw poll's blocked? Is it blocked for everybody or just Kennedy? I kind of figured it was going to be blocked, but like it's silly. It's just like a polling website. But I want to be able to give you guys polls. Can you guys all access my link? No, some of you guys are voting. Some of you guys might be watching this on your phone. It was not blocked for you. The poll works. It's just Kennedy again, you know. Kennedy's got these Chromebook problems going on over here. You know, what's going on? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding with you, Kennedy. I'm kidding with you. I'm kidding. But if you can't do the straw poll, no worries. No worries. As long as we get like a lot of people to take it, which would be good. All right, let me start getting to some of these questions here. Get to some of these questions here. All right. Conjuring sounds scary, but I don't even know what that is. Paranormal Activity, same thing. I'm not much of a scary movie person, but I should try to watch one really, really scary movie just to see. I'm just not even in that genre at all, but just, you know, I don't know. I don't know of a movie that has truly scared me, Aiden says. Aiden doesn't get scared. Aiden, you're gonna get scared in that haunted house tomorrow, though. I'll tell you that much. The Gallows, Paranormal Activity, The Terrifier, Conjuring. It's blocked. Scary website. Blair Witch Project. Annabelle. Like Annabeth? Or Annabelle? Wait, who's Panda Chan? Oh, it's not. Gotcha. I don't like scary movies, so I don't watch a lot. Yeah, I'm not much of a scary movie person either. People, there's times where like Stranger Things scared me though. There's like silly movies that like at times like are kind of scary, right? So it doesn't have to be like, you know, like an insanely scary movie, but The Shining maybe. That's it? Oh yeah, we don't have a lot of students today. Trial by Media, not really a movie, but more of a documentary. Yeah, documentaries can be scary too sometimes too. Cool. All right, let's go to the straw poll here. This is the question I posed to you guys. Like how comfortable are you with the ADS model right now? Which is pretty good, right? You guys are more on the comfortable side rather than the uncomfortable side, which is pretty good. That's good. How many people responded? 7, 8? 8? That's it? What is going on, people? What's with the PSAT ruining our class right now? What's going on? Only 8 of you? I bet it's blocked for some of you guys. You guys didn't want to say it. I don't know. Alright, people. Well, that's good. That's good news, right? Because at this point, all I want you to be able to do is if I give you a scenario, right? Income taxes go down, or corporate taxes increase, or increase in the cost of production, or, you know, whatever, defense spending increases. Would you be able to know if it's AD or AS, and would you be able to shift it in the right direction? And then after you shift it in the right direction, right, are you going to be able to analyze that short-run change, right? Unemployment goes up because GDP went down, and since price level went up, real wages would go down, right? Because nominal wages are fixed in the short run, right? I hope you guys would be able to do that. Because today, we're going to add another curve to it. We're going to add another layer to it. And today, we're going to be able to look at long-run equilibrium. Oh yeah, last announcement before we get started here is, people, you guys won the game. You guys won GeoGuessr. The seniors, like, I mean, they're blaming me. They think I messed them up, right? But we had Thailand yesterday, and I was like running out of time again. And then like one student was like, go north Thailand, right? And someone else was like, go middle to left. And I like, you know, just saw one. I like, all right, I went north, and they all got mad at me because like it was like middle left. But it was, one student said north, one student said middle left. There was no one else backing the other student, right? So just, I don't know. We're gonna have to find another game because there's too much debate in that. Everyone's saying like I messed them up, you know. Why would I do that? Why would I do that? Anyway, people, all our announcements. Oh yeah, some of you guys started your Unit 2 test, which is good. Some of you guys actually have 100% on the Unit 2 test right now, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, just remember you have until Sunday. Same thing as last time. You know, no cheating on there, right? I'm trusting you guys. I'm trying to be flexible with you guys. You know, virtual and all that, by not, you know, making a test on a certain day and eating up our precious class time. But make sure you guys go on there and try your best on it, right? And before you submit your answers, double check everything. Because once you submit it, I can't give it back to you, all right? It will be graded, okay? All right, and then don't bank on a retake, all right? That was kind of a special thing for Unit 1. I mean, I'll probably do it, right? Just because, like, you know, I think it's a good idea. And a lot of you guys did increase your scores from last time slightly. Some guys actually went down, but yeah, right? So don't bank on a retake. I'm like, oh, if I do bad, then, you know, I'll study for the next one. Don't do that, all right? Because you might not get one. It's not a guarantee. All right, people. Let's get into it. All right, we're going to do a lot of graphing today. So what we're going to have to do at some point is we're going to go back to this. And I'm going to be manipulating this graph and moving it all around right here. But we're going to start off in the old PowerPoint here, right? So today we're going to be looking at long-run aggregate supply. Long-run aggregate supply, all right? The third curve that's going to be on our graph. And let's switch the slide before you guys all have a seizure. There we go. All right, so before we talk about long-run aggregate supply, I want to revisit aggregate supply again, right? Because again, we have two aggregate supply curves. One is short-run aggregate supply, and the other one is long run aggregate supply, right? It is still the willingness and ability for producers to produce, but one's talking about their willingness and ability to produce in the short run, and the other one's talking about their willingness and ability to produce in the long run, right? So aggregate supply, short run aggregate supply, it should really say, is all about this idea that it's a short period of time, a period of time in which wages can't adjust, right? Wages are unable to adjust to price level changes, right? And we talked about reasons why. Generally, a great percentage of our labor force has labor contracts, right? Like me, for instance, right? Even a public employee, you know, I have my salary for this year, right? It might be a 2-year contract. I'm not sure. I think it's just a 1-year contract. And then at the end of it, right, then I can therefore negotiate my wage if need be, right? And generally, we know that people generally ask for wage increases, right? But if inflation is, 20%, right, I can't change my contract right now. I'm locked in. My wage is sticky. It's fixed in the short run. I can't change it. But in the long run, once enough time goes by, contracts begin to expire, people can renegotiate higher wages, right? Once enough time goes by, the government can enact new minimum wage laws to adjust for inflation. In the short run, you have to remember always, in the short run, wages are sticky, right? Wages are fixed. Wages cannot change in the short run, okay? So short run aggregate supply is a curve that shows producers' willingness and ability to produce if that is true, right? If wages are fixed, how are they going to react to rises in price level? Are they going to produce more or less or not change production levels, right? And we know that they're going to produce more if price level goes up. Long run aggregate supply is this idea that enough time has gone by, right, where wages will adjust. Wages are flexible in the long run, and they can change, right? Again, both these is not like a set period of time. It's more so like an idea, like which would require a length of time. But long run aggregate supply is so much time that everyone's contracts will expire, right? Governments will have enough time to change minimum wage laws and things of that nature. Enough time goes by where wages can adjust is the general idea. That's what long run means. So long run aggregate supply is the amount that can be produced and willingness to produce by producers in the long run, understanding that wages are going to be flexible, all right? So short run aggregate supply worked like this, right? I gave you guys this little example. I said if a firm currently makes 100 units and they sell each one for $1, and they're going to make $100 in revenue, right? They're producing 100 units and they sell each one for $1. Oh my gosh, people, like you can't even see my screen right now. Oh my gosh, Mr. Moore, what are you doing? Okay, you didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. You didn't miss much. All right, I just went over this slide right here. Now you guys gotta say something. All right. Anyway, let's talk about the difference between short run and long run. You guys already have this slide, but short run's like this, right? In the short run, if I produce 100 units and I sell each one for $1, I'm going to bring in $100 in revenue. And let's say my only cost of production is labor costs. And my labor costs are $80, right? I'm going to make $20 in profit. Then, if price level changes, how will my willingness and ability to produce change? Is the general question in the short run. Well, in the short run, if price changes from $1 to $2, my revenue would, in a sense, double because prices have doubled. So now my revenue is going to be $200, all right? So you can see that there is an incentive to produce more in the short run because my labor costs are going to be the same. In the short run, if price level changes and I have the ability to pay my workers the same amount, I'm going to hire more workers and I'm going to increase my production levels because I'm making higher profit margins, right? The good that in which I'm selling is going up in price. My labor costs stay the same. I'm going to hire as many workers as possible in the short run and produce as much as possible. So in the short run, as price level increases, aggregate supply will increase. That's why short run aggregate supply is upward sloping. As price level increases, we're going to produce more and more. Vice versa, if price level decreases in the short run, I'm going to produce less, right? Like if price went from $1 to 50 cents and I still got to pay my workers $80, my profit's going to begin to decline, right? I'm going to want to produce way less, right, and lay off workers in the short run because my profit's going down as price level is going down. That's the idea of short run. In the long run, let's change it a little bit. In the long run, we know that resource prices are flexible, right? Wages are flexible, right? It's a long period of time where wages will change. So using the same example as before, let's say that total revenue is 100, just like it was before, and our labor costs or only cost, which is $80. Our profit would be 20. Let's again double the price level, but instead of looking at what's going to happen in the short run, our short run production decisions, what's going to happen in the long run? Well, in the long run, if price level doubles, long run means there's enough time for wages to adjust. So if price level doubles, that means wages will double, right? People are going to ask for new labor contracts, and they're going to be like, hey, price level doubled, right? I want double pay, right? Because think about it, like these are the workers who are producing this good. The workers producing this good now are producing a good that is twice as valuable. So when their contract rolls around, they're going to be like, hey, I add this much to the business, I expect this much in pay, right? We're going to assume that workers will get the appropriate wage increase relative to the change in price level. So what happens, right? So now total revenue is $200, right? Because price level doubled, but my labor costs are going to double as well, right? So my labor costs are going to go from $80 to $160. So yeah, my nominal profit has increased. My nominal profit is now $40 opposed to $20, but prices have doubled, right? So if you take this profit and adjust it for inflation, it would be $20. The real profit would be $20. In other words, is there any sort of incentive to produce more when price level changes in the long run? No, right? Because if price level changes in the long run, your labor costs are going to change by the same percentage, right? The same amount. So there's no incentive to increase production as price level increases or decrease production as price level decreases. It doesn't matter. It's independent. Your production decisions are going to be independent with price level changes. It does not matter, right? That's the idea of long run. Okay? So long run aggregate supply is going to look like this on our graph. Very, very important. It is going to be a vertical. And what does long run aggregate supply truly mean, right? It basically means doesn't matter what price level, what happens to price level in the long run, right? Doesn't matter if we have higher prices or lower prices. This is the amount that we can produce if we have the net rate of unemployment, right? If we have 5% of people unemployed, generally in the U.S., right? But that's not always going to be the measure, but like in the U.S., that's pretty close to the measure is 5%. If we have 5% unemployment, this is the amount of GDP that we should be able to produce. And generally, this is actually labeled YF. Let me just change it because that's not, I like it labeled more like this. Okay, just for you guys. All right, YF, all right? LRS. So again, this means output at full employment. You guys have seen the word full employment a few times now. Full employment means if we're using all of our labor, which we understand we'll have 5% unemployment, right? This is how much we can produce. This is like basically producing at the curve. This is how much output, this is how much real GDP we're going to produce at any given moment of time if we have 5% unemployment. Okay? This is how much output. In the short run, we might be able to produce more, or we might be, we might produce less due to short run aggregate supply, right? And production decisions that are going to change due to changes in price level. But in the long run, if we have 5% unemployment, we have to be somewhere on this curve. We have to be producing around this real GDP level. That's all long run aggregate supply means. So what we're really going to use long run aggregate supply for is to identify the state of the economy, right? Because we know a healthy economy is an economy that we're producing at 5% unemployment. So we want to have our short run equilibrium somewhere on this curve, right? Is the idea. Let me show you some further illustrations. But yeah, this line represents full employment, right? It represents the trend line. Oh, hold on here. I'll go to this slide first. All right. You guys remember we talked about the PPC and the business cycle, right? And we had this trend line right here and the full employment line, right? We understand from Unit 2 that we're always going to have frictional unemployment and structural unemployment. Right, it's going to happen no matter what, and it's reflective of a healthy economy if we're going to have 5% unemployment. So we know that we really can't produce at this curve, right, where we have 0% unemployment. That's impossible. We want to be producing at this curve, and if we produce at this curve, that is an efficient level of production because we understand that we're going to have 5% unemployment, right? So if we're producing inside that pink curve, right, this is called a recessionary gap, right? This means we're not producing at LRAS. We're not producing at full employment. Our actual unemployment rate has to be higher than the net rate of unemployment, right? If we're producing at this green line, right, you guys have already got this notes before, unemployment has to be greater than 5%, maybe like 8%. That's why it's called a recessionary gap. Okay? In a second, we're going to use our ADS model to find, the various states of the economy. So you're definitely going to want to get a little refresher on this. All right? Say we improve, right, and now we're producing at the curve, right, operating at full employment, which full employment means we're going to have 5% unemployment, but really like all of our workers are employed. No one's unemployed due to cyclical reasons, right? So it's healthy. That's what we want. And on the business cycle, it would be right here. Again, this pink line here and this pink line here is LRAS. It is this. It's this line right here. It means we're producing this much output. That's what LRAS represents. All right? And then obviously at times, we can operate at in an inflationary gap, it's called. An inflationary gap is our actual unemployment is greater than the net rate of unemployment. Or sorry, less than the net rate of unemployment. So maybe our actual unemployment rate is like 3%, even though we know a healthy economy has 5% unemployment. This is due to that short-run aggregate supply curve, right? As price level changes in the short run, where labor costs don't change, there's an incentive to hire workers that you probably otherwise wouldn't hire, right? To increase production levels, right? That's called an inflationary gap. So that'd be here on the business cycle. So what we want to do is, see how in these two graphs here, we can see the three different states of the economy. It says the economy can only be in one of three places at any given time. We can either be in an inflationary gap, where unemployment levels are lower than the NRU, right? Or actual GDP is greater than potential GDP, right? We can also be at full employment where actual GDP is equal to potential GDP, or actual unemployment is equal to the net rate of unemployment, or we could be in a recessionary gap where actual unemployment is greater than the net rate of unemployment, or actual GDP is less than potential GDP, right? The economy can be in one of three places at any given moment, right? Like right now we're in a recessionary gap because our actual unemployment rate is higher than net rate of unemployment. Okay, that's the idea. Our actual GDP is less than the potential GDP because we're not operating at 5% unemployment. So on the ADS model, right, here are the three states of the economy. Now, people, this is very, very important because when you guys receive FRQs, and we're going to do some FRQs starting tomorrow, you're going to notice the first part of the FRQ says draw the economy in this situation, right? In this current state. So it's going to say draw the economy in a recessionary gap. You have to draw it looking like this, all right? Draw the economy in an inflationary gap. You got to draw it like this. Draw an economy at full employment. Draw it like this. Or they might be, they might make it more difficult. They might say the actual unemployment rate is this, and the net rate of unemployment is this, right? Actual GDP is this, and potential GDP is this. From that information, you need to identify on the ADS model where we're currently at relative to where we're supposed to be at, right? So this is a recessionary gap. Let's talk about each of these in detail here. This is a recessionary gap, right? Because where AD and AS intersect is here, right? It's kind of messed up a little bit right here, right? But people, we're always currently at where AD and AS intersect. We're always operating at our short-run equilibrium, right? So where YE means like we're currently here. Output equilibrium. We're currently producing here. So notice we're currently producing less GDP than where we ought to be producing. YF is output at full employment, right? Output if we had only 5% unemployment. This is how much we should be able to produce at. So this is definitely a recessionary gap, right? Again, there's two reasons why it's a recessionary gap. You could explain it in one of two ways. The first reason is our actual GDP, right, is less than our potential GDP. I hope that makes sense. Potential GDP is how much we could produce if we had 5% unemployment, right? And in this case, unemployment has to be higher because we're not producing, at our potential. Actual GDP is less than potential GDP, or it might say, in this case, the actual unemployment rate is greater than the net rate of unemployment. All right, you would have to know to draw a recessionary gap, and all you do is draw ADAS, right, PLEYE, and then draw LRAS to the right of it, and then label that YF, right? And again, make sure you label it as GDPR. Don't just label it GDP, price level, and everything, right? And that is a recessionary gap. An inflationary gap is one where the actual output, the actual GDP, is greater than the potential GDP. We're currently producing outside of our means, right? We're currently producing right here. Our actual GDP, where we're currently at, YE, is greater than output if we had 5% unemployment. So our actual GDP is greater than our potential GDP. So what has to be true is our actual unemployment rate has to be less than the natural rate of unemployment. We must be operating at, say, 3% unemployment to be operating in an inflationary gap. We're currently right here in the short run. So both of these two graphs right here, it's called we're at short run equilibrium, right? This is not sustainable. Eventually we're going to go back, and I'll show you guys how to do that adjustment here in a second, right? But yeah, you would have to know if it says inflationary gap, actual GDP is greater than potential GDP, actual unemployment is less than the natural rate of unemployment, and sometimes it's called a negative output gap. Over here, this is called a negative output gap, a recessionary gap is, and sometimes it's called a positive output gap over here. There's like 4 different ways they can like tell you like the state of the economy, and in any of those 4 different ways, you need to know how to draw your ADS model just like this, right? So again, negative output gap, positive output gap, recessionary gap, inflationary gap, GDP relative to the potential GDP, and also actual unemployment relative to natural rate of unemployment. Okay? And then here is called full employment. This is also called long run equilibrium, right? If we're currently producing at full employment, right? It's called full employment, right? It's called long run equilibrium because we're operating at long run. Remember, we're always operating where AD and AS intersect. So when we're equal to one another, I like to label this YFE. Output at full employment right now, equilibrium. We're currently producing at full employment. That's how I like to label it. So again, you got to be able to draw the state of the economy given various information, right? In this case, it'd be like actual GDP is equal to potential GDP, or the actual unemployment rate is equal to the natural rate of unemployment. Same thing, right? We're operating at 5% unemployment. Draw the economy, right? We're not in a positive output gap or a negative output gap, right? Draw the state of the economy, okay? All right. Next one I want to talk about, pretty colors, is long run adjustments, all right? And this is what you guys are going to do on your problem set, and this is very, very important. A lot of students sometimes struggle with it, right? But it's not going to be you guys. You guys got this. All right, I'm going to use the business cycle to maybe kind of help you make the connection here. All right, so right now, this economy is currently in which type of gap? All right, put in the chat, because I don't even know if you guys are here right now. Is this economy in a recessionary gap, inflationary gap, or at long run equilibrium, or full employment? You could write the either or. Recessionary gap, inflationary gap, or long run equilibrium or full employment. Very good. Full employment, right? Very good, right? So again, that means actual GDP is equal to potential GDP, and the actual unemployment rate is equal to the natural rate of unemployment. Same thing. All right, let's do a short run change, all right? So generally what happens is this, right? If you start at long run equilibrium and they ask you what happens in the long run, they're going to give you an aggregate demand shifter, all right? So just know that, right? The first change is going to be a change to aggregate demand, all right? So let's say consumer spending increases. You know that that's going to increase aggregate demand. So what happens is, if this happens, right, consumers for whatever reason start spending a bunch of money, right? Maybe income taxes go down, or I don't know, there's like massive panic. I don't know, right? Like consumers start spending a bunch of money, right? Probably lower income taxes for whatever reason. That's going to cause aggregate demand to increase. So now what's going to happen is we're going to be living in an inflationary gap. We went from long run equilibrium, full employment, to an inflationary gap. So now we're currently producing here. Right, so now Y1 is greater than YF, inflationary gap. Our actual GDP is now greater than the potential GDP. Our actual unemployment rate would therefore be less than the natural rate of unemployment. We're probably operating at like 3% unemployment. I hope you guys are picking up what we're throwing down over here, right? So that's called a short run change, right? It's a short run change because we're not at long run equilibrium. We went from long run to short run, right? So if it says consumer spending increases, what happens in the short run, right? Like if just the question said that, right? all you would simply do is look at your graph and compare point A to point B and do what we did yesterday, right? You'd be like, output increases, so unemployment goes down, so incomes increase, right? Real wages would go down because price level goes up and everyone doesn't get a pay raise. Nominal wages are sticky, right, in the short run, right? This would be your short run change if consumer spending changes, right? But what if it says this, however, right? And this is different than what we did yesterday. What if it says consumer spending increases, and then it says what happens in the long run, all right? So this is a big deal. What you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to automatically adjust the graph. I call it long run adjustments, right? They're not gonna give you an aggregate supply shifter. You have to know that whenever we adjust back to long run, you're gonna change aggregate supply. You have to do it. You have to automatically adjust it. They're not gonna give you any sort of hint to do so, all right? So what happens is this. This is the rationale, and this is why you do this kind of adjustment. This is why you change aggregate supply in the long run. Long run means there's enough time that goes by where wages can eventually adjust. Okay? So what you need to ask yourself now is what has happened to wages? Or sorry, what has happened to real wages here? Right? What has happened to real wages? If price level increased and everyone's still getting paid the same amount, because we're talking about short run when we're talking about operating at this point right here, what are workers going to do? Right? If you were living in this economy and price level went up, there's inflation, and your paycheck has not moved. It has stayed the same. In the short run, nominal wages are fixed, right? In the long run, you're eventually going to do what? You're going to ask for a wage increase. You're going to ask for a raise. That's the connection, right? In the long run, since we had an increase in price level, workers are eventually, once their contracts expire, are eventually going to start asking for wage increases. And when they get the wage increase, that's aggregate supply, right? So aggregate supply is going to have to decrease, is the idea. Once workers get those wage increases, that's an increase in the cost of production. Businesses are going to pay higher labor costs. That's more financial capital they're going to have to put in the labor. Thus, they're going to have less money to buy labor and other resources. They're not going to be able to produce as much. They're going to produce less than they once did before. So what you always do in the long run is you change aggregate supply. And aggregate supply is going to take us right back to long run equilibrium, right? That's why it's called long run. We can live life here in the short run, but eventually we're always going to go back. We're always going to go back, right? And the reason is because at some point wages will eventually adjust. What you need to do is you need to figure out what is going to happen to wages. How do wages adjust? And it's always going to be aggregate supply, right? It's a labor cost. So in this case, right, went from long run to short run back to long run. So if this question just said this, consumer spending increases, what happens in the long run, right? What you do is you compare your graph from point A to point C. And the only thing that changes from point A to point C is price level. That was it. We're going to have inflation. That's it. Everything stayed the same. Everything stayed the same. Nominal wages did go up, right? Wages did go up, right? But in terms of output and unemployment, has all stayed the same, all right? That's the idea, okay? I hope that makes a lot of sense. If the question says what happens in the short run, you just analyze, your change from A to B, right? If it says what happens in the long run, you go from A to C. Now, sometimes they start you off here. In a short run equilibrium, they say what happens in the long run, then you would do it from B to C, if that's the case. I'll show you another example of that here in a second. Okay? All right. So notice we're on our business cycle, we go back to long run. Okay, moving on. Right? Let's go the other way now, right? So here we're operating at long run equilibrium. You're given a short run change, right, which is consumer spending goes down, so maybe income taxes go up, right? We tax individuals more. And that's going to cause aggregate demand to go down, which you guys should know. If it said what happens in the short run due to this decrease in consumer spending, you would just read your graph, just like we did yesterday. You would say price level goes down, output goes down, right? Since output goes down, unemployment goes up. Since unemployment goes up, incomes go down. Real wages went up, right? Because nominal wages stayed the same. Everyone's getting the same amount of money, but price level has decreased, so everyone's ability to buy has now increased. right? Real wages, right, have gone up, and you know, all those measures that we did yesterday. But if it says if consumer spending decreases, what happens in the long run? Long run means a lot of time goes by, and we're going to have to manually, right, ourselves adjust this graph and get us back to long run. But you have to be able to explain why, right? You can't just say, a lot of students do this. A lot of students go, in the long run, aggregate supply takes us back to long run because it always takes us back to long run. No. Aggregate supply in this case is going to increase because eventually wages will decrease in this case, right? Right? So why does that happen? Well, it happens because of this, right? When we were from here to here, we experienced an increase in unemployment, right? We started producing less output, so therefore unemployment has now increased. We are now in a recessionary gap, right? From A to B here. We went from long run to a recessionary gap. Our actual output level is less than the potential output level, right? So once enough time goes by, what are workers going to do? Well, if you were in a recession, right, you're experiencing high unemployment, workers are going to be very reluctant to ask for higher wages, right? I know we all want higher wages, but, right, say you're sitting down at the table, right, with your boss, right, and you're trying to keep your job, or maybe you're interviewing to get the job, right, and you guys look out the window and there's, 10 people unemployed trying to get the same job as you, right? You're probably going to be like, you know what, I want to stay employed, right? I am willing to take a lower pay, right? I'm willing to take lower wages, right? And you can do so because price level has decreased. All prices in our economy have decreased. And again, your employer is going to be like, I can't pay you what I once did before, right? The goods that I'm selling have now decreased in price, right? So you are going to have to take a wage decrease, and you, the worker, are going to be willing to take a wage decrease because, one, you want to stay employed or become employed, and two, you can because now the cost of living has now definitely decreased, right? So we're going to assume that. We're going to assume that in a recession, workers will negotiate lower wages. And lower wages is a decrease in the cost of production, and that's why we're going to experience an increase in aggregate supply. And that's why if we go to a recessionary gap, how do we get out of it? Aggregate supply will eventually increase and take us back, right? The last two scenarios, what I talked about is if we don't do anything, right? The government doesn't do anything. The government doesn't try to fix the recession, and the government doesn't try to fix the inflationary gap. In a bit, we're going to talk about policy, and that's going to be changing aggregate demand to get us back to long run, right? But if we don't do anything, what gets us back to long run always is aggregate supply, because it's this idea that time will go by, and people's wages will eventually adjust, and they're either going to decrease here, which is going to increase aggregate supply, or from the previous example, wages will eventually increase, which is going to decrease aggregate supply, right? It's the same thing every single time. You get a demand shifter, right? We go to a recessionary gap, aggregate supply takes you back, all right? All right, people. Let me show you one last thing. Okay? All right. Sometimes, and on your problem set, I'm going to do it like this, right? The first two questions on your problem set, I'm going to start you at long run. I'm going to give you a short run change, which is going to be aggregate demand, and then I'm going to want you to take aggregate supply back and explain why, and obviously measure the changes, right? Sometimes, all right, let's do a little check on learning here, right? Where would I put LRAS if this is a recessionary gap? Should I put LRAS to the right of my equilibrium in a recessionary gap? Or should I put LRAS to the left of my equilibrium in a recessionary gap? What do you guys think? Right for a recessionary gap or left for a recessionary gap? Right or left? I want to draw a recessionary gap. Should LRAS be to the right or left of my short run equilibrium? Oh no. It's going to want to be to the right. All right, it's going to want to be to the right. And again, LRAS just means like how much output we're supposed to be producing at full employment, right? So I would put this like this, right? It kind of like, our short run equilibrium is where we're currently at. If we're in a recessionary gap, that means we're currently producing less than where we ought to be producing, right? So this is how you would draw a recessionary gap, right? So what I usually do is, if this was like, pencil and paper, right? I draw, price level, real GDP, ADAS, right? Where X marks the spot is my equilibriums. And then lastly, I put my LRAS in here, it's not that LRAS has increased, right? It's just that LRAS has to be greater than my short run equilibrium, and then I label that YF, right? Output given, full employment here, all right? Okay. Sometimes you start in a short run equilibrium, aka recessionary gap or inflationary gap, and you have to, it'll say what happens in the long run, all right? What happens in the long run? Well, in the long run, what's eventually going to happen is aggregate supply is going to have to increase, all right? If we don't do anything and we're currently living life in a recession, how do we get back, right? Aggregate supply is going to have to increase, and you have to be able to explain why. You're going to say wages will eventually fall, right? Because we're in a recession, there's high unemployment, workers are going to ask for lower wages, lower costs of production, aggregate supply is going to increase, right? So then, price level would obviously, can we move please? Price level would obviously decrease, blah, 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 right? And output would go, back to where we normally were at, right? Okay, let's do the other way, right? Let's say, we're currently in a inflationary gap, right? In inflationary gap, we would draw the ADS model like this. This is how we started out, right? This is an inflationary gap. And I know that because my current output level, YE, where we're currently at, is greater than my full employment output level. So if I was asked to draw an inflationary gap, I'd have to make sure it looks like this. If they said, draw the economy where actual GDP is greater than potential GDP, I'd have to draw it like this. Draw an economy where actual unemployment is less than the net rate of unemployment. I'd have to draw it like this, right? Okay, anyway, so if, given no changes, right, what happens in the long run, right? Given no changes, what happens in the long run? Well, again, how do we get back to long run? It's always aggregate supply, and we have to explain it, right? We can't say aggregate supply always takes us back, right? You're not going to get points for that. The reason aggregate supply decreases in this case is because workers will ask for higher wages, right? If we're in an inflationary gap, that means prices have increased, which the cost of living has therefore increased. People's wages have been the same. They're going to want to increase in their wages to adjust for inflation, right? Which is going to be an increase in the cost of production, which is going to decrease aggregate supply. And again, so price will decrease. So if they start you in short run and they say what happens in the long run, right, you're going to have to analyze the change from A to B here. So price would increase, wages have increased, output will decrease, unemployment will increase, right? That's the general idea, okay? So we're not, just to be clear, you don't always start at long run, right? You don't always start at long run, all right? You guys will get the trends here in a bit, like what it looks like. If they start you in long run and they ask you about long run, you'll change AD first and you'll change AS to get you back. If they start you in a short run equilibrium, aka recessionary gap or inflationary gap, all you simply do is change AS to get back, right? You're not going to change AD and then AS, right? Well, sometimes you might have to, but yeah, we'll work with that. All right, people. We did a lot today. All right, so the problem set should be pretty easy. I'll see you guys here in Google Meet. We'll try our best on it. It's not due till tomorrow, so if you're still struggling a little bit, we can figure it out tomorrow, and then I'll probably revisit this again tomorrow. And what we'll do is I'll keep the work light. We'll probably just do like one FRQ on top of this. Okay, so that's pretty much it. All right, so I'll see you guys here.